Tonight on Global TV News Prime, Vice President Shettima calls for practical climate solutions. In business, President Tinubu halts FRC Act caps deals for private companies. On the foreign scene, South Africa's second largest party threatens exit from unity government. And in sports, Al Hilal make Osimhen €50 million salary offer. Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Prime on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Uyi Agmofwebe, reminding our viewers that you can find us on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times 276. You can also download the Global TV Nigeria mobile app for Android and iOS devices to keep track of our 247 broadcast. Tonight, let's begin by telling you Vice President Kashim Shettima has called on nations worldwide to take bold, practical steps to combat climate change, describing it as a global threat that requires urgent, country-specific responses. The Vice President made the call during the official launch of Ethiopia's Green Legacy Initiative in Addis Ababa, where he is on a state visit while expressing admiration for the country's determined climate efforts. Shettima praised the initiative as a wonderful example of tackling environmental challenges with clarity, courage, and conviction, noting that climate change cannot be solved through discussions alone, but demands concrete actions tailored to each nation's ecological realities. The presidency has defended President Bola Tinubu's ongoing state visit to St. Lucia, describing it as a landmark diplomatic and cultural mission. In a statement signed by a special advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, the presidency said in the wake of uninformed comments regarding the President's historic state visits to St. Lucia, it is necessary to clarify the purpose of the trip. Onanuga further said the visit is aimed at reviving Nigeria's ancestral and strategic ties with St. Lucia and the wider Caribbean community. In another development, the presidency has debunked reports circulating that the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, has been replaced by the Special Advisor to the President on Policy Coordination, Adisa Bala Usman. Reacting to the report, Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, in a statement, described the trending report as fake and advised the public to disregard it. The National Coordinator of the Southeast Renewed Hope Agenda, Beloso Chukwu Enwere, has affirmed that President Bola Tinubu holds the Southeast region in high regard and remains committed to advancing its development and economic growth. He made the remarks in Umuahia, Abia State capital, during the inauguration and empowerment of small business owners, indigent persons, and women as part of the Renewed Hope Agenda of President Bola Tinubu's administration. And Warren noted that the president is determined to empower citizens in the southeastern states and ensure that the region is fully included in the national development agenda. The federal government says plans are ongoing to begin manufacturing of boats in the country in a bid to phase out rickety vessels and curb incidents of boat mishaps. Executive Secretary of the Nigeria Shippers Council, Pius Akuta, stated this in an interview in Abuja, where he said the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy, as well as the Nigerian Inland Waterways Authority, were working tirelessly to minimize the level of accidents on the inland waterways. The federal government says it is currently building 6 cancer excellence centers across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country for early detection, treatment, and management of all cancer cases. Minister of State for Health, Isiaq Salako, disclosed this in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, while launching the OncoSeek cancer screening tests, an early cancer screening diagnosis test, which formed part of a workshop on the development of national nuclear medicine guidelines and policy. He noted that the increasing burden of cancer in the country demanded the employment and deployment of all solutions and all management possibilities to tackle that challenge. And still talking health matters, the federal government has announced plans to renew and review its healthcare policy for civil servants. This disclosure was made during a free medical screening exercise for civil servants in Abuja, held as part of activities marking the 2025 Civil Service Week. He noted that a more responsive and up-to-date framework is necessary given the rising cost of drugs and persistent gaps in the delivery of healthcare services. Suspended River State Governor Siminalayi Fubara has urged his supporters to accept the terms of his peace deal with the Federal Capital Territory Minister Nyesom Wike in good faith. Fubara stated this at a meeting with members of his simplified family in Port Harcourt 24 hours after the Abuja peace deal. The suspended governor said there is no price too big to pay for peace, apparently in reaction to criticism of the peace deal by some people who accused him of surrendering to alleged intimidation. Let's turn to other stories for you now. The national chairman of Advanced Democratic Party, ADP, Yabaji Sani, has called on the National Assembly for the removal of the power to appoint chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and resident electoral commissioners, RECs, from the president. He made this call in an interview in Abuja, where he said in the course of amending the Constitution, the National Assembly should look into those portions of the nation's democracy to be properly grounded. Sani also advocated for a review of the section of the Constitution that empowers the president to appoint the Inspector General of Police. So much conversation to be unbundled from that remark. Enugu State Governor Peter Mbah has debunked the speculation that he is leaving the People's Democratic Party, PDP, stating that he remains in the party. The governor issued the rebuttal at an interactive session with members of the Nigeria Guild of Editors, NGE, in Enugu State. While acknowledging the challenges facing the PDP, Governor Mbah pointed out that the party was not one encountering crisis in the country, expressing optimism that the PDP would soon resolve its problems. The Lagos State government has reiterated its dedication to promoting food safety and hygiene across the state through rigorous health screening of food handlers, regular water quality testing, and intensified public awareness campaigns. Speaking during the commemoration of World Food Safety Day, following Theophilus Ajayi, Director of Environmental and Occupational Health and Safety, stated that Lagos State had taken proactive measures at ensuring that food consumed by residents complies with international safety standards. Ajayi also emphasized that the Safe Plate Initiative, SPI, signed into law by Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu in July last year, remains a pivotal strategy in achieving this goal. This is Global Television, and you're watching the live broadcast of News Prime with Uyi Agumofwebe. When the rest of the news returns tonight, South Africa's second largest party threatens exit from unity government. We have those details for you from the foreign scene as well as business and sports stories on the other side of this break. Please do stay with us.
Do you know that Global Television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch Global Television real-time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to Global Television.
Thank you so very much, everyone, for staying with us here and watching the live broadcast of News Prime on Global Television. The second part of this news broadcast now returns with business, where President Bola Tinubu has ordered a temporary pause in the implementation of the controversial Financial Reporting Council Amendment Act 2023, which imposed new annual dues on large private companies classified as public interest entities. The decision, according to the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, followed months of sustained pressure from the private sector and a technical review initiated by the ministry. Stakeholders had expressed concern over the disproportionate compliance burden and financial risk the amended act posed to non-listed companies. Meanwhile, the federal government has inaugurated a committee to draft comprehensive guidelines for the implementation of private partnership projects. Minister of Education, Dr. Olatunji Alausa, inaugurated the committee in Abuja. The committee, chaired by Minister of State for Education, Suwaiba Said Ahmad, is expected to submit its final report within 3 months. The newly appointed president of the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, George Lumbi, has pledged to prioritize the transformation of Africa's trade structure and overhaul of key infrastructure such as seaport terminals and power stations as part of his vision to sustain and deepen the bank's mandate. Speaking at the press conference following his unanimous appointment at the Afreximbank annual meetings in Abuja, Lumbi said he would continue to uphold the treaty establishing Afreximbank with a clear focus on transforming Africa's trade structure. He emphasized that his agenda will focus on strategic infrastructure that enables trade, highlighting export processing zones, seaport terminals, power stations, and human capital. The Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, has announced that it has energized 2 newly installed power transmitters at its kilowatt Benin Kirby transmission substation in Kebbi State. Spokesperson of the company, Ndidi Mba, made this known in a statement where she said the 100 megavolts amplifiers and 150 megavolts amplifiers transformers were energized earlier in June this year. The Deputy National Chairman of the Nigerian Institution of Highway and Transportation Engineers, Bola Mudashiru, has raised concerns over Nigeria's infrastructure stock, stating that it currently stands at just 30% of the country's gross domestic product, GDP, below the 70% benchmark recommended for middle-income economies. Mudashiru disclosed these while delivering a keynote address on the theme Nigeria Transportation Infrastructure, Navigating Progress, Challenges and Opportunities for Sustainable Growth at the 2025 Public Lecture and Induction Ceremony of New Engineers organized by the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Lagos Branch, in collaboration with their institution. The Director General of the Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, Edwin Harris, has called on civil society organizations, national authorities, policymakers, and development partners to renew their commitment to the collective fight against money laundering and terrorist financing in the sub-region. Speaking at the opening of the Regional Sensitization Seminar for Civil Society Organizations on Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Financing of Terrorism requirements held in Lagos, Harris emphasized the strategic role of civil society in shaping policies, influencing public attitudes, and advocating for sustainable anti-corruption reforms. Now time to go beyond our shores. The second largest party in South Africa's coalition government, the Democratic Alliance, says it is not scared to walk away from the coalition. At a press conference in Cape Town, the party's Federal Council chairperson, Helen Zille, stated that the Democratic Alliance is not afraid to go for what she called the nuclear option.
The announcement was a fresh blow to the government of national unity, in which the Democratic Alliance is the second largest party, just days before it marks its first anniversary. President Cyril Ramaphosa of the African National Congress, ANC, launched the national dialogue this month to address the country's top issues, from high unemployment to crime. However, the initiative has been criticized by the Democratic Alliance and others, with the party's leader, John Sehunsen, saying it was nothing more than a waste of time and money.
So this is the second big strike. And believe me, we discussed at length a motion of no confidence in the president. And there was a significant debate about it. And that is not off the table. If the president shows that he's indistinguishable from the corrupt RET faction in his party, then, well, there's no point in being in a coalition with him at all, because he is exactly the same as the others. So we're saying to him, don't test us, because we're prepared to use the nuclear option.
The government of national unity was formed after the ANC failed to win an outright majority in the June 2024 elections for the first time ever. Uyi Agbofwegbe, reporting for Global TV News.
Let's go beyond Africa now. Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, Rafael Grossi, says Iran will likely be able to begin to produce enriched uranium in a matter of months, despite damage to several nuclear facilities from the United States and Israeli attacks. Kabir Hassan has details.
The United Nations nuclear watchdog chief stated these days after U.S. President Donald Trump insisted the month's attack has set Iran's nuclear ambition back by decades.
Iran had a very vast, ambitious program, and part of it may still be there, and if not, there is also the self-evident truth that the knowledge is there, the industrial capacity is there. Iran is a very sophisticated country in terms of nuclear technology, as is obvious.
Israel launched a bombing campaign on Iran nuclear and military sites on June 13, saying it was aimed at keeping Iran from developing a nuclear weapon, an ambition the Islamic Republic has consistently denied. Hassan Kabir reporting for Global TV News.
In reaction to U.S. strikes on its nuclear sites, the Iranian foreign minister has called on the United Nations Security Council to recognize the Israeli regime and the United States as the initiators of the recent act of aggression against Iran and their subsequent responsibility, including compensation and reparation. In a letter to the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres and President of the United Nations Security Council Caroline Rodriguez-Burkett, on June 28, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said the UN Security Council should hold the U.S. and the Zionist regime accountable for aggression against Iran and prevent the recurrence of heinous and serious crimes. Let's turn to sports for some excitement now. Nigeria Super Falcons will square up against Ghana's Black Queens in a crucial friendly fixture in Casablanca as both West African giants fine-tune their preparations for the 2024 Women's Africa Cup of Nations, WAFCON. The encounter represents the final preparatory match for both teams before the continental showpiece commences on July 5 in Morocco. For the 9-time African champions, the clash against their perennial rivals serves as a crucial test ahead of their quest for a 10th WAFCON title, having dominated the competition since its inception as a tournament in 1998. Saudi Pro League giant Al Hilal has tabled a stunning €50 million per season contract offer for Victor Osimhen, whilst Napoli have ordered the Nigerian striker to report for pre-season training as his future remains uncertain. This 26-year-old has never been closer to leaving Napoli, with transfer market experts Armando Araniello, who specializes in Napoli, stating that the former Lille forward has been subject of a massive offer from the Saudi Arabian club. Valencia defender Christian Mosquera has agreed on personal terms with Arsenal ahead of a possible move this summer. The Gunners have already seen an opening offer of around €14 million for Mosquera rejected. However, it is understood that Valencia is willing to do a deal for a fee in excess of €20 million. Seems to be a season of money in football now. But quickly, let's end tonight's broadcast of News Prime with some look at big stories. Vice President Kashif Shettima has called on nations worldwide to take bold, practical steps to combat climate change, describing it as a global threat that requires urgent country-specific responses. In business, President Bola Tinubu has ordered a temporary pause in the implementation of the controversial Financial Reporting Council Amendment Act 2023, which imposes new annual dues on large private companies classified as public interest entities. On the foreign scene, the second largest party in South Africa's coalition government, the Democratic Alliance, says it is not scared to walk away from the coalition. And finally, tonight in sports, we told you Saudi Pro League giant Al Hilal has tabled a stunning €50 million per season contract offer for Victor Osimhen, while